Welcome to the David Kurten Show here on today's News Talk TNT. And thank you for joining me again. If you join me every day, I know some of you do, and you give me wonderful, kind comments about what we talk about in the show. Now, today I want to talk about something that has been of great concern to me and many people over many, many years, and that is the gross financial irresponsibility of government. Now, in the UK, we now have a mountain of national debt, which it stands today, as far as I know, at 2.7 trillion pounds. It's really hard to get your head around figures that big, but in the United States, it's even bigger at $34 trillion. In the UK, that's increasing by about 130 billion pounds every year, which again is almost incomprehensible to many people. But we're in the phase now where it's almost impossible to pay back all of our national debt. But what concerns me as well is debt being taken on extra to that by local governments. And there's been a report released this week by the Local Government Information Unit, which is called the State of Government Finance Report. It's been widely reported in the mainstream media, in all the media over the last 2 or 3 years, that there have been a number of high-profile bankruptcies of councils in England. There are 317 local councils in England, and about 18 of them have declared bankruptcy over the last few years. Some of the most high-profile cases are Nottingham, that went bankrupt just last year with debts of £38 million. That could have been completely avoided, and the reason they got that much debt is because they set up their own energy company, which was a complete financial and business disaster. But that pales in comparison to some of the other cases we've heard. The small town of Slough in Berkshire, near West London, got into debt and declared bankruptcy with debts of £760 million. It's a mystery how they got that much debt. It doesn't seem to be just anything. They didn't get anything for it, and the local taxpayers and ratepayers haven't got anything to show for that. Birmingham also got into debt and went bankrupt with £1 billion of debt. To be fair to them, there was extenuating circumstances for that, because there was a lawsuit by some people who felt that they had been discriminated against, and that was over 10 years ago, and they're now paying off the settlement for the lawsuit. But still, the tragedy for the people of Birmingham is they have to pick up the tab for this. And what's happening, as in most cases where local councils go bankrupt, is the central government steps in, and then they have to cut their services, sell off many of their assets, and they increase local council tax by above the normal rate. It can go up by 5% a year without any special mechanisms to do so. But in Birmingham, council tax has gone up by 10% for the local taxpayers this year because they've gone bankrupt. Even worse was the situation in Croydon in South London, that had £1.3 billion of debt because of dodgy property deals. And an even smaller council, the small town of Woking in Surrey, went bankrupt. And this is the biggest of them all, £2 billion of debt because of dodgy property deals done by councillors who didn't know what they were doing. And they had the vision to turn Woking from a small, sleepy commuter town into something like the Singapore of Surrey. There's loads of new buildings gone up in Woking, but they're not making any money out of it. And the council's gone bankrupt. And of course, the local people have to pick up the tab. Now, the concerning thing about the report that's just been written is that 9% of councils in England think that they're going to go bankrupt this year. That means another 30 councils, in addition to the 18 that have already gone bankrupt. And 51% of councils think that they will go bankrupt in the next 5 years, meaning a full 100 and 160 councils will go bankrupt over the next 5 years if this report is true. And people have responded to this anonymously. So I imagine that the people in charge of those councils were quite honest about how they think their finances are going to fare in the future. What this means is half the local people in local areas in England are going to find their public services cut, like they have been in Woking and Croydon and Birmingham and other places. Old buildings may be sold off to property developers at fire sale prices, who will then turn them into luxury flats, perhaps for foreigners to come and live in, as we are seeing happening all over the country today. And your council tax will go up above the normal rate. The reason why this is happening is because councils are full of change agents, and they're doing two things. They're pushing the diversity agenda. They are infested with diversity, inclusion, and equality officers who are more concerned about whether you write your pronouns in your bio or on your emails, rather than dealing with the things that councils are supposed to deal with, like fixing potholes, making sure there's adequate street lighting, looking after maintaining your libraries and parks and public toilets and public spaces, providing youth clubs and services for youth, community services for elderly people and disabled people, and so on. That's what we expect councils to do. But they're obsessed with focusing on wokery, and they're also obsessed with focusing on this climate agenda and fulfilling the premises of Agenda 2030, the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. So they waste thousands, sometimes millions, sometimes billions of pounds on wind turbines or solar panels, or putting in bicycle lanes, or putting road blockages in and making low traffic neighborhoods and so on. One council I didn't mention earlier that's also gone bankrupt is Thurrock Council in Essex, that lost 1.5 billion pounds investing in or speculating on a wind farm project that went wrong and they lost their money. It went down a financial black hole somewhere, and of course the taxpayers pick up the tab. If you don't want this to continue, if you want to change, as I say many times, please change your vote. Don't keep voting Tory, Labour, Lib Dem, Green. They're all the same, and they're all going to continue making bad decisions and putting change agents in the council staff and civil service to make sure that these things that are terrible and going to drain your local finances in place. Vote for somebody else. You can vote for me and my party if you like, who will make a change and who will be financially responsible. We need to get a grip of this so that local councils serve their people rather than agendas which don't benefit the people and act against the people.